And welcome to the International Dentist Podcast.
Hi, Dr. Ledrica. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here.
The pleasure is mine. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and talk a little bit about your experiences as an international dentist in this country.
Absolutely.
I would like to know, why did you choose the United States as a country to develop your dental career?
So my story actually goes back, let me think, probably 13 years ago when I was just done with my specialty in Geneva, Switzerland. And an opportunity came where a faculty member approached me and said, you've just done a combined program of pros and oral surgery. You're heavily into implants. There's an excellent center for implantology, an institution of implantology is called the International Team of Implantology, with centers all over the world. And why don't you think of applying there? So to me, it was very, we all are in our little worlds with our little routines. And it was a very kind of out of the ordinary idea for me. So I thought about it a lot, and I thought, I'm also a single child with my mother who's taking care of me. So there was an emotional part of it where I didn't want to leave her. I've also grown up in Europe most of my life, and the United States I've only visited probably once or twice with my mom, who worked at the UN at that time. So I did not have a very clear or concrete idea of how the United States will be, how moving away from my family, from my mom would be. And Geneva is a beautiful city, but it's also a very remote city. Doesn't have a lot of it's a very diverse, very, very, very rich, but at the same time, it's a tiny city in Europe. When we talk about the United States, it's a lot of different feelings and a lot of different geopolitical ideas come to mind. So I was a little apprehended by the idea, but then one very dear faculty of mine, highly encouraged me to consider that, citing some names in dentistry at Harvard, namely dental school, which they thought would be an awesome, that I would be a good, it would be a great experience for me, and they would be a great influence on my career as well. Also, I think I'm one of the few students who spoke English very well, and I was actually giving many lectures as a postgrad in English. I was sent first to San Antonio to lecture. I was also lecturing at the Swiss dental conferences and in France as well, in French and in English. So I think my name came about because of my knowledge of English, being bilingual or trilingual. And I was very fortunate to be approached by that. So I considered it highly, looked into it, of course, looked into the names such as H.P. Weber and Dr. Hermann Gallucci, who are actually Swiss. And I felt that hybrid relationship with them, where they were Swiss and went to the United States and have done very well for themselves. And that was very inspiring to me. So I did apply to the ITI scholarship and have put Boston as my first choice, and then another center as my second. And I was very fortunate to have been selected to Boston. And so it was a very exciting start for my implantology career, I would say.
I actually had no idea that it goes back to your ability to know the language. So how powerful that was. How did you learn English?
Exactly. That's a very good point, Dr. McGregor, to say that, because I think all of us, live in our world learning different languages, and we don't realize how important the English language is, So I highly encourage people to learn it from a young age. It opens up many doors for you. I think keeping your ethnic language going is very important, but educating yourself, reading in English, and having that will open up doors, as it did for me. And so I learned English because I actually moved to Switzerland when I was 13 years of age. And at that point, I only spoke Arabic. And I ended up joining the International School of Geneva, which had a primarily English department, a subsidiary French one as well. But the French came about very much later in my life. So English is actually my second language. And I was fortunate enough to be able to excel in the language and master it before I move on to French. So when I studied French became my third language. And most of my reading and my literature was actually in English.
Oh, wow. Where did you go to dental school?
So it's called, it's the dental school in Geneva. And it's one of the best experiences I had in my life. It's one of the best also schools right now. They've renovated it and it has excelled in many of its technologies and techniques and dental.
Where did you go to dental school?
I went to dental school in the University of Geneva at the dental school there. So it was an excellent and an awesome experience.
Wonderful. How was it different when you first came to the US and you had all this training and experiences in a different European country? How do you find dentistry being different in the US, at least at first?
Yes, that is an excellent question. Because I feel like that was one of the main things that shaped me as a dentist today, is how my experience as a Swiss dentist has transformed into being an American dentist and a kind of a dentist of the world, where I've had a lot of training in conservative adhesive dentistry, in minimally invasive dentistry, very conservative with the Swiss techniques and the Swiss style, which I believe is one of the best in the world. And I was very, very fortunate to have excellent mentors such as Dr. Urs Buser, Dr. Bernard, Dr. Samson, and Dr. Vailati, who I still, value and honor and cherish and still have contact with until today. I had those mentors to guide me and to open the door for me. And coming from that system and from that philosophy and coming to the US was quite different. And I feel like I learned a lot from American dentistry. I started off in an institution at Harvard as an ITI fellow or an ITI scholar. And from that, I was able to imbibe in what, the institution taught in terms of its different technique. And I was able to bring in my philosophy as well and my techniques and my education. And it was very nice actually to be able to collaborate with my American colleagues and international colleagues from all around the world and exchange ideas. I had a lot to bring to the table in terms of adhesive dentistry and minimally invasive, and I had a lot to take in from a very complex treatment planning and including the TMJ along with the treatment planning and with the whole rehabilitation of the patient and a very, very multidisciplinary view from American dentistry and a very well researched, backed up studies. And the goal here is really long-term prognosis and predictability. And, it's a very different system. We start looking more long-term and at the same time, while trying to be conservative. So I feel like that my power today as a dentist is having been able to, include both of those sides of my education and my training.
That's wonderful. I think integrating those two worlds that are so different.
Yes.
Completely opposite if you might in many aspects, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Definitely you took the positive side, which basically was taking your knowledge and still learning the things that you were receiving and integrating them both. In that process, did you struggle with anything or there was any cultural shock or professional shock you encounter?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think this is something that is undermined sometimes when we look at international students or when we meet colleagues or meet instructors. I think that kind of culture shock is undermined because we continue looking at the academic side, at the clinical side. How well is that student doing? But there's a mental and a psychological side there too, where the person might be suffering, getting clashes, getting different messages from different educational systems. And I think it's very important to be supportive of that and be, and cater to that. I did have a hard time trying to maintain my my way of practicing dentistry while abiding by certain laws and by certain techniques that are here. I was fortunate to have colleagues who heard me out and who actually managed to even implement some of the techniques I've had, which weren't initially implemented in Harvard and at Tufts. And I was able to kind of pass along that message without, with all due respect, without saying that my method is better, but it's something that could be enriching. And in the same time, taking in the patient management skills, I think in American dentistry is something that's not to be undermined. It's, it's a very different relationship here. There's a lot of other third parties who are involved. And I feel like being able to manage the patient, manage everything around is something that, the dental schools here do brilliantly. And that has helped me as well. But yes, the struggle was really to try and put my foot down, but at the same time, without being disrespectful and without, me myself questioning my own techniques and questioning what I have learned so far, going the extra mile, doing more reading, more research about what is the best way to treat the patient. And I think at the end of the day, this is what it is, right? We are all healthcare providers. We want what's best for our patients. It has nothing to do with ego or who's better. You just want to provide what's best for your patient. And so I think that has been a little bit of a struggle, is just trying to balance my ways and take in what's important at the same time doing my equivalent, being a teacher. I was a faculty at Tufts by that time when I decided by that time that I wanted to stay in the US. And at that time I had to also study for the boards and study for equivalency exams, which would enable me to practice dentistry at the US. Balancing all of that was not easy and could not have been done without the support of the dental community, friends, colleagues and mentors until today I am in touch with, and I consider being my tribe, who have helped me along the way. And I think it's very important to be able to voice those struggles and have a support system. That's very important.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a word I love, tribe, which I think it's something that we have to continue to grow and develop. Once you find people that are mind like it, it's very important to continue to grow the relationship. And you mentioned something I'm curious about. So you came first to the ITI program, which it was meant to be a 1-year program?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened down the road that you decided to stay? When did that happen?
So I met this cute little Indian guy. Love came in the way. Like Freud said, love is homesickness. I think that it is something that in life, you never know where life takes you. And I think the main thing is to go in with an open heart and an open mind. And yes, my goal was to come in for a year, gather as much experience and knowledge from Dr. H.P. Weber, who was my mentor at that time, and all the wonderful colleagues who I've met throughout the way, and then go back to Switzerland and continue my little routine life in perfect Geneva, But things don't always happen like we plan. And along the way, actually very early on in the way, I had met my now husband of 10 years. And we decided that we would continue this journey together. And that involved that I would stay and explore my opportunities further in Boston. And I must say, I was super lucky and I think it all comes to that, right? Being grateful for what you have and making the best out of it. I'm not going to say it's an easy process. I won't say, things serendipitously went perfectly fine, but truly it's trying to make the best out of every situation. I ended up being in the unofficial brain power triangle of the US, Boston with, MIT, Tufts, Harvard schools. I can't say I didn't luck out. So it's kind of one of the, most academically acclaimed places. It's the hub of research, of medicine, of all the best institutions. So I considered, I wouldn't say love was the only reason I stayed. It was also Boston and its, and its charm and its education and its culture. So that's why I decided that I would pursue my journey a little further. And hence I continued to stay along.
Wonderful. In that thought process of, okay, now I guess I have to stay or I want to stay. I have reasons, strong reasons to stay. When you start exploring the possibilities to practice as a dentist in the US.
Yes.
And you lay out all your options, what did you have in mind? Were you overwhelmed? Were there a lot of challenges involved in that process?
Absolutely. I think the challenges are multifaceted. They're not only emotional, which is something that is not seen. It's it's something that is underlying kind of, and it's a struggle that's from within, and it translates a lot into the way we act, the way we behave, the way we end up being as people. But also, the struggles are also financial. The struggles are also, professional. You want to make sure that you do your best. You want to make sure that you continue progressing. And, social as well. I mean, despite the fact that I have a tribe right now who's surrounding me, it did not start being this way. It was a very difficult start in the United States. I had a group of best friends in Switzerland with whom I graduated with and who were my family. I have no siblings also, so they were really like my brothers and my sisters. And I come here across the Atlantic Ocean, kind of alone, and start deciding that I want to start my life in this whole new continent with a very different culture, at a very difficult, situation, and a very different environment as well, away from family, away from friends, with a different type of practicing dentistry, struggles that I have to now start dental school pretty much all over again after I've just graduated and celebrated my end of, let me think, 6 + 3, 9 years of dental school. So it's definitely a struggle, but again, like I say, it comes back to believing in yourself and to trying to make the best out of every situation. There's good people everywhere. You can find culture everywhere. You can find your own home. I always take pride in saying that in Boston, you can be whoever you want to be. And I believe that that's the case in many reputable US cities, is that there is a freedom that is not found in many places in the world. And it's a freedom also that gives you the thought process to be creative. If you are allowed to think for yourself, you start being creative, you start having great ideas, and that's what's empowering. You feel like you're able to make the life for yourself in a very different environment. And there's no better feeling than that, feeling that you've overcome the challenge and the struggle and the hurdles that you've met along the way. I mean, when I came as a student in scrubs, I never thought I'd be sitting here with you speaking about all of this 13 years later. I never planned to be a business owner. I never planned to be, an academic professional either. And I love it. And I feel very fortunate that those struggles have gotten me to where I am right now. To be able, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about them.
Of course, it's incredible how when you have an open mind and an open heart and you're able to do your best and try your best, there is no challenges. Of course, at the moment that you are making the decision, you're feeling a step back.
Right.
Feeling like now all of my friends, colleagues are progressing and I'm regressing for a little bit. Did you have that feeling?
Yes. Oh my God, Dr. Lagreka, I think that's a very important thing or feeling to kind of materialize or speak about, because we don't want to say it because none of us wants to feel like they're regressing, right? We're all, and unfortunately the society is in a way that we all have to reach milestones. And if we skip a milestone or go back to the previous one, we feel like we failed, and it's a societal pressure that is definitely tangible. And it's definitely something that we all feel, and we are not able to express it, because if we express it, it means that we are materializing it and that it's real. It is very real. I am 41 years old today, and I'm mature enough to say that this is something that is definitely a feeling that you have. But you know what? And this brings me to the Alchemist, the novel. And I don't know if many of our listeners would have read it, but I highly, highly recommend it. It's a beautiful novel which shows that truly it's not where you want to reach that's important. It's how you got there. And so this really summarizes my journey in the United States, because at the end of the day, yes, I finally got here, maybe got where I want to be, maybe a few years later, but the experiences, the relationships, the strengths in my personality that I felt were added along the way because of everything I've been through, and because of homesickness, social issues, emotionally feeling very alone, struggling with many things on my own, which is a very difficult thing. Humans are tribes, and they flourish in tribes, and I was completely alone. I had to build that tribe all over again. And yes, it did set me back, but then now I'm here. I'm very, very grateful to where I am at, not because I feel like I've achieved this, achieved that, and I have all those on my CV checklists. No, it's because of all the experiences that I've gotten, all the wonderful people I've met, including you. You are a very, very prime person from those people. And also just the experiences that I've got that I'm able to bring along to my children now, and teach them that it's not so important to get there fast. It's important to stop, smell the roses, and to get there with certain, additions to your personality. So thank you for bringing this up, because many, I think, students, this is something that's not spoken of, is that they feel that they come to any country, right? And they feel like they have to now do dental school again. They have to go back and learn new techniques again. And it's a setback for them. But along the way, the richnesses that you gain are really incredible.
That I couldn't put any better words. I think I like talking about these things, because I think there are in everyone's thoughts when you make the decision, or when you're thinking of making the decision. Kind of a fear comes from that. The social pressure of, especially if you're a woman, that there's certain things that you have to do within certain timelines, depending on where your country of origin. I think we pretty much could all agree that in most societies, you have to do certain things at certain times, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a beautiful thing now, looking back, saying that you learn down the road that yes, it represented a little step back, but more than that was an opportunity to grow knowledge that now you can pass to your children.
Yes.
Hopefully make them stronger and maybe empower them too.
Absolutely. And kind of tell them that it's not important to get there fast, but it's important the road you take to get there, and I think that's a main thing that happens to students around the world who end up deciding to move away from their home and their familiar environment and from routines that they're used to. Know that the struggle is real, that it's definitely going to be a rough road, but at the end of the day, you are going to look back and you're going to thank God, if you believe in God, or thank faith for having led you there, because the strength in your personality, for having gone out of your comfort zone, which I believe is really what makes you a good human and global citizen, is coming out of your comfort zone, venturing into new experiences, not being trapped in the one life which you may feel is perfect, but it's not so perfect after you've seen all the wonderful things that other societies and other cultures and other people can bring to you. And do not think of it as a step back. Truly, it's only a step forward in throughout your life.
Out of these challenges that you experience, is there any challenge in particular that you cheer or that you recall as the one that became the biggest growth for you from overcoming?
I think just being independent, to be honest with you. This is something I don't take lightly. I was a single child raised by a very strong role model, who is my mom, and she has shown me, and I'm glad you bring up culture, because in my culture, women are not always given the opportunities to excel and to shine and to come out. I think genetically or societally and culturally, there is a natural evolution for women to have certain roles, which are kind of enforced on us, and I believe that having that role model who is my mother, who was a single mother taking care of me and making sure that academically and that socially I am very well protected, has been a huge loss, for me. It has been a huge struggle to be away from that and to be away from her. I think that was really something, just being away from my role model, but at the same time being inspired by her, having that, whatever she taught me along the way, as a guide and as a candle that lights my way throughout my new journey. Having her support me, even though, of course, she missed me. I'm her only child, but having her cheer me along the way and tell me to follow my dreams, to follow love, which is also important, and to, kind of create this new life for myself, which she believed in me. I mean, every mother would want her child to be close to her. Every mother would want her child to be in a certain culture. That we all have our biases, but she believed in me. She believed in my heart, and I believe a lot in my instinct as well. And the minute I told her this is how I would like to lead my life, I'm going into this completely new journey on my own without any family in the United States. I think was the major struggle, but the major accomplishment for me. And of course, she is proud now that her daughter has made it. I think she's mostly proud to be a grandmother, to be honest with you, but she's proud of me too. And I think for me, that's the hardest but also the proudest achievement.
We share that. I also have a very close relationship with my parents, and my dad is my biggest role model and I guess the biggest pusher for me to do things out of my comfort zone. As you mentioned, that's where really growth occurs. And it has to come from an outside source many times until the point that it becomes part of your natural inner force. And when you're in this country, you're forced to do all these things out of the sudden on your own.
Yes.
In a super different environment from all perspectives, that you're definitely being introduced in a new professional environment, which is something we mostly talk about, but we don't talk about so much about the personal, emotional, and social challenges that are part of this process. Now that you have been for over a decade in the US, and you have a deeper understanding of the culture, at least from your experience, what do you think are those things that you appreciate the most about this culture or that have shaped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the US, and we see it throughout history. It's really the country or the land of opportunities. I think whoever you are, whatever color you are, whatever ethnicity, religion, size, preferences, gender, you are someone who has a voice, and you are someone who can develop a community for yourself. And you are someone who can achieve their dreams. And we see that throughout history. I read history books, and we read Rebel Girls now with my two daughters. And we see all of those names in history which have started in the US, and as early as the 1600s, who have shaped history. And it's women, it's also men, of course, but we are focused on women, of course, as part of the journey of empowering my two daughters. So we see that everything is possible. You can start with a disadvantage and take that disadvantage and turn it into an advantage. And I think the United States, I can speak about Boston from my perspective only, because that's the only place I have lived in, is really a place where diversity has allowed me to be myself and to practice my preferences in any cultural, religious, or professional way. It gives you the freedom to as long as you work hard, and as long as you ethically do what you do, which of course we all strive to do is something that gives you opportunities that are limitless. You know, you make your own life here. And that's something which many cultures fail to do, to be honest with you. Many countries fail to do, is to bring out that creative side or that different side of you, the side where you have a disadvantage. You know, if you hear it's gotten me to be to develop a lot of facets of my personalities, which probably were just, restricted to certain ones where I used to live earlier. And, I think hard work, perseverance, resilience are keys. And those are not just in romantic books. Those are real truthful, qualities that if you do, there are going to be hurdles along the way. But it's very important to recognize the advantages that a culture is there to provide for you. It's also very easy for us to criticize, and it's very easy to long to a reality which is an alternate reality, which is on the other side. The grass is always greener on the other side, correct? But I would say, after, being more than a decade in this country, more than a decade in a different country, which is Switzerland, and living also in Africa, in Libya, which is where I was born, having those, being privileged enough for the sequence of events to have allowed me to live in 3 different continents, 3 different cultures, and 3 different countries, has allowed me to realize that there's always hope and there's always something to take in. We all grow up with biases, we all grow up with certain ideas that we feel are the true ones, the correct ones. But I think going to a place with an open heart and listening to the other side and being kind of open to debate and open to a different point of view is one of the main things that makes you a good global citizen and a good foreign, a good meaning, a happy one, actually, a fulfilled one. Citizen, it's or a student or a postgrad, and Boston does a wonderful job in that. I mean, it just allows you to have so many different areas and centers where you can, explore every side of yours, and whether it's the the creative side or the professional side or the academic side or the clinical side or the historic side and the athletic side. And there's so much to be seen, so much to be lived. I feel that's the main thing, is to go with an open heart and to try and put away your differences and kind of be open, because you'd be surprised what you'd see on the other side.
I could not agree more. I agree 100%. I'm a lover of Boston since day one. I feel that we share that too, that connection that you feel at first with a city. It's so important for you to feel part of it. I'm very impressed by the way how you carry your career in this decade. You had explored pretty much all areas that dentistry has to offer. You started in academia, and then you transitioned into being a successful business owner, practitioner, entrepreneur. I love using that definition for a strong women, particularly in dentistry, taking the lead in their own business. Can you share with us a little bit what that journey has taught you?
Absolutely. So, like you said, the journey has allowed me to be, to start off as a fellow and ended up being a business owner of 2 dental practices, along with my husband, and a mother. And I think it's that the journey has taught me to, I guess, be able to, even though I try and combine my roles as a mother and as a dentist, I think it's very important not to forget your own self. I am above all Hamasat, who is a human being who loves to read and loves to do Pilates and loves to spend time with my friends and go for a coffee in my favorite, cafeteria with a piece of pastry. I think it's important in that journey where we're rushing to accomplish things because, again, societal pressures, and because financial needs are there, and because, we need to keep, upbeat with the rushing and the hustling of of the economy and of the society around us, I think it's very important. What that journey has taught me is to be able to take a step back, actually, and say, it's okay for me sometimes not to continue my journey, my schedule today, and to take the time to block the afternoon to go for a run. I think it's important to be able to balance that, because I always say when I'm happy, that's when I'm able to be the best mom for my children, and also the best dentist for my patients. And the patients really see that. I think especially during this time of COVID, where the stresses are increased and tremendous, it is important for all of us to take time for ourselves and to take time to see what's important. And I think that's a lesson that this virus has really taught all of us, is that it's important to step back and not continue rushing and filling your schedule and have a long list of things to do. Was that your question, Gabby?
Yeah, I was curious about that. And I guess part of it is also thinking if you struggle in the transition between academia and private practice, do you have any struggles going on with adapting or, I guess, learning how to practice in the US?
Yes, that's a very good question, because I think it was easy when I was fully in academia, which was for more than 8 years that I was fully in academia. I had a limited private practice activity at the Tufts faculty practice, but that was something that I could, give my whole attention and focus to, which is academia, my students, CE courses, being the best instructor that I can be, giving them the latest in technology. I think what was important for me, and something that's kind of triggered, is when I had my second child, it was the same time that we had our first practice, and my husband is a dentist too. So and that's very fortunate for me, because he takes the brunt of a lot of the administrative and other office tasks and activities and headaches, to be honest with you. So being in private practice is no joke. It is a very active and a very challenging and a very consuming kind of job. So I'm very fortunate to be able to split that between me and my husband, because what that allowed me is to continue a small focus on academia. And I'm sad to say small, but it is a small focus on academia currently. When it was 100%, now it's probably just 20% of my activities. And private practice requires a lot of time, effort, energy in order to build the business, of course. And it made me, I like the word entrepreneur as well, because it made me an entrepreneur, even though I have no MBA. And it taught me a lot. It's a very different animal. It's a very different ball game when you go into private practice from academia. The challenges are very different. You start thinking more entrepreneurial. You start thinking more about business decisions, but you as a dentist, of course, cannot forget that. And I think whenever my patients ask me, how is business? I tell them it's good, but I don't like it to be too busy, because that's when the quality goes down. And for me, that's very important, is to make sure we balance between business and between providing the best quality care for my patients. Because whenever things get too busy, I feel the quality goes down, and that's everywhere in life. And I think part of the reason I had to reduce my academic involvements is also because I've become a mother. And that's a whole different overwhelming and consuming feeling also in a woman's life, where you realize that you cannot be a 20% mother. You cannot be a 50%. You have to be 100%. So everything that you give beyond that is 150. It's 200% of yourself. And I think the main struggle was trying to be the best version of myself in all aspects of my life. And we are all high achieving, very high demanding women. And as I know you are as well, Dr. Lagreka. And I think that's the struggle, is the one that we put on ourselves, of excelling, of getting frustrated when we are not able to achieve that, whether at home or at the office or with our students, with our patients, with our children. I think for me, trying to balance that while while trying to maintain myself as well and a happy place for myself has been the number one struggle. I always say, I wish there were like 50 hours in a day. I wish I had more time to give for everyone. And I am grateful to be able to feel that way, right? Because it means that I'm loving all the roles that have been bestowed on me. But I think it's also a struggle because with those roles come a certain responsibility and pressure that we put in ourselves. And I think it's important to say no at one point. It's important to say, you know what, not now. I think maybe I need some time to take care of this, and then I will continue the next step next year or something like that. And that has been the lesson that I've learned.
It's super powerful thinking how saying no to something can actually take you so far in other things.
Yes.
I feel like we struggle, as you mentioned, it's also society pressure. If you have an opportunity, you have to take it. But really, how many roles can you do? And you mentioned something that I personally love and gets close to my heart as I dream to be a mother at some point too.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a mom, you have to be a mom 100%.
Correct.
And everything else is going to be 120, 150, 200. And there is just one person. There's just one Hamasat. There is just one Gabriela. So making the conscious choice of I'm giving up something.
Yes.
For, I guess, a greater good. If
Yes.
the overused expression, right?
Absolutely.
And that goes with timing on life. Right now, you have chosen to dedicate to your family and your business. And of course, something had to be sacrificed, which at this point, it's okay if it's education, it will always be there. And hopefully you'll be able to take it back. And it makes me curious of thinking, how do you see your future as the dental professional? How do you think with everything that is happening? Let's put together COVID and all the changes related to that, how technology have become a lot more accessible maybe for many or necessary to integrate for many. How do you see the future of dentistry?
Dentistry is going through a rough patch right now. I must say it's a very clinical, obviously, job. And 99% of my patients, when I ask them, are you able to work from home, especially in a city with white collar jobs like Boston, we are fortunate to be able to do that. In dentistry, you cannot. So they say yes. 99% say yes. And Boston has been able to attract, because of its diversity and because of its acclaimed academic institutions and because of its history, many startups and many, long, well-accomplished or established institutions such as Microsoft or GE have been here. And so they've created this amazing, incredible population of young grads and young professionals who are doing a wonderful job right now at keeping the country going, at keeping the society going and economy as well. In dentistry, however, we're not able to do that. And as much as virtual dentistry can be a thing, there's not so much we can do when a filling is chipped. We can comfort the patients and prescribe some medications to them. But I think in terms of clinical dentistry and for business owners, and I feel for business owners of all actually different jobs, not just dentistry, I feel for them because it's a time where it's hard. I think dentistry right now, and I think I am fortunate to be able to continue parts of my dental career in form, and you are a very active part of that, the ITI study clubs, for example, which is something that we can do virtually, right? We are able with all the correct precautions at a dental practice to provide a very safe environment for our patients. The volume is not as much, but then more volume doesn't necessarily mean better. So I think as long as you balance that and you reset your mind into knowing that this is the future of dentistry, I think it's definitely going to be a different one where we have to practice with a much heavier PPE, which is a challenge for dentists. It's not easy. It is something where, I think dentists do need more support in that regard, whether ergonomically or emotionally, also psychologically. I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly. graduating dentists have to know that we are essential. And I see that after a closure of many months, we see that, even cleanings that have been missed can lead to issues which are undeniable. So we are part of a very important part of healthcare. We provide a very noble, service to patients. And as long as we know of how essential it is, and as long as we continue practicing it with the love and passion that we do, dentistry has a bright future. I think it's also important to be kind to ourselves and not to feel that this is something that is draining us in terms of, how we practice it, in the conditions, in the PPE and the stresses that go around it, all the new laws. I think it's important to take a step back maybe it's important for dentists right now to reconsider different options of how they can provide the services for the patients. It's important for business owners to take a step back and reconsider their whole practice flow. It's important for us to realize also that we have to provide, we have to make, in order to make our staff and our patients safe. It's important to redesign certain ways of how the practice is built. So I think it's a time when dentists, business owners it's important for us to take a step back and do a lot of thinking. And that can only be for the better, because obviously practicing dentistry in the rhythm that it was practiced before, with those new laws and new precautions that we have to take, cannot be healthy. And so it's something that's very important for us to realize. And as long as we reset and as long as we reconfigure our minds and our practice priorities and our techniques, I think it's only going to get better. And this is, again, we all hope it's a temporary situation, but infection control we haven't been shy of it in dentistry. It's something that we practice every day. It's not such a huge change for us to have those new laws and regulations with COVID and with the pandemic. But it's a good reminder, I think, of our pace and of our practice protocols, for sure.
You mentioned something that I personally think it's super important, given the opportunity that COVID has offered to take a step back. How difficult it is when you have a business that is running, that you have all those responsibilities related. That you just call a reality. Yes, it's a job, you love it, but also you have a lot of financial responsibilities related with carrying a business.
Correct.
Especially when your staff is involved and renting, etc. All of the things.
Correct.
How many times in life you have an opportunity to have a step back? Like it's mandatory, right?
It's mandatory. Yes. And that's when, virtual, and like you said, technology has become a prime part now of our lives. And I feel like this is when maybe this is a time for us as clinicians. And you took the chance to do that, Dr. Lagreca, and I congratulate you for it, because you took the time to take use of technology during a time when you probably had slightly more time on your hands to explore something which can help other dentists. And I think a lot of us have a lot to offer. Not just because of what we have running in our CV, but because of the different experiences which you highlight for all of the ones that you're interviewing. So I think all of that can be put in a way that can support colleague dentists and can support business owners. And I can definitely see many of my colleagues, including my husband, give a lot back just through those podcasts or through Zoom calls or through CE courses and through lectures. A lot of it can come from us right now to try and turn this pandemic into something more useful, more powerful, and collect all of our resources and kind of be there for each other. This sisterly, brotherly kind of colleagueship is very important, and I think we need it now more than ever.
Totally. Hopefully we can build a virtual tribe out of all of this. We can get through it together. But now it's virtual everything.
That might as well.
If you could give one piece of advice to those international dentists out there who are considering coming from their countries to the US, with all the experience you have, if you could pick one thing or a collection of things, what are you thinking will be strong for them to keep in mind?
Absolutely. I think, and this is going to sound cliche, but it truly is. Follow your dreams. Follow that little voice in your head that tells you it's time to go somewhere else, somewhere different, somewhere maybe that you had, that you did not think you would go into with your life, a place where it offers different opportunities. I think different is the key here, because we all feel that our surrounding is the right place, right? We always feel that we are doing the right thing. We are what we believe in, or what we read, or what we are taught by our community is the right way. But then you travel, and I think the US is the best place to have that exposure. And you see a variety of views, and whether it's within the dental field, like I was explaining earlier, where, the way to practice dentistry was different. The way to prep and onlay was different. The way to the material change, the material recommendations, the management of the patient. It introduces you to a whole lot of data that is so different than what you're used to. And I think that's where power comes from, is change. And it's very difficult to change, right? It's a very hard thing to do, especially as we progress in age. But I think once you take that step, it's very empowering. You're going to learn a lot along the way. I love to quote this sentence by Joan Erickson, who's an author. Vital lives are about action. You can't feel warmth unless you create it. You can't feel delight until you play. And you can't know serendipity unless you risk. So taking the risk is really a main thing in your life, and a main step forward. And you can never go wrong. I think the things that you learn along the way makes you the well-rounded, the global citizen, the open-minded person. And hopefully you can, translate that to your colleagues, to your community, to your tribe, to your children. And that's what makes all of us empowered. I think diverseness and just differences between us is really what makes us stronger.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so empowering to listening to you and to continue to learn from you now from a different perspective. I feel very fortunate and blessed that you're affording me this opportunity to have this conversation, to learn more about you and about your journey, which it's a true inspiration for me, has always been.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And the journey would not have been possible without the wonderful people. Gabby, you were such a wonderful person from the time I had met you, in terms of how dedicated you are to your work, to your learning, but to also the human part. I remember you have always been the one remembering each one's birthday. And I think that is such an important part, is not to forget in the whole rumbling of all the different things that we have to do in the day, the human part, and to stop and pick up the phone and call your colleague, call your mom, and call the person who has, believed in you one day, who has lent you a hand, who has taught you something. I have a long list of those people, and you are definitely one of them. And you're someone who just shines light. And I think such a noble thing that you've taken over is to guide the foreign dentists with all the complications and the emotional struggles that come in one's head when they move to a different culture, different society, and a whole different way of life. I think if I were here and I listened to your podcast, I would just feel, okay, I am not alone. People have done this before me. And I remember coming here and crying that I remember I was calling my friends in Switzerland and crying and saying, I just can't, I don't know how to make friends. I've lost the opportunity to make friends. And I think that was main thing. I just felt, and this was all something our brains do to us. You feel that you're in a new place. Hence it's hence the people here are new. They're from Mars. I felt like I couldn't make those social interactions that I was so good at. I was so popular back in Switzerland, in Geneva. And I come here and I have a hard time making friendships. But you know what? I now looking back and having the wonderful friendships that I have now, I know that it is all in your brain. Humans are humans all over the world. You find my closest friends, Ines, Iman, Stella, all of those wonderful people and many more who I've made. I find Ines, Iman, and Stella right now in my surroundings and in my friendships, in the person I go to get my coffee in the morning, in my patients, in my staff. And and I realize I cannot believe that I thought these people were from Mars. They are humans. I can make my friendships the same way in Switzerland, or the same way from Colombia, or from Venezuela, or from Kenya, or from anywhere that all of those students are coming to get the best education and to enhance their education here. You will find your tribe. You will make it. You just have to have an open mind, which is something that is very hard when you change places and when you miss your mom and you miss your family and your parents and your siblings, and you miss that kind of routine life that you have, and everything that's habitual to you. Everything becomes new. But in novelty, there's also strength, and then there's also richness. I would say just open up. And the minute I opened up my heart and I felt like, okay, I can do this. I was accepted at Tufts for a faculty position. And I said, okay, the world is opening up. And I feel like once one door opens, I truly believe that other doors will open as well. And that's when you excel, and that's when you flourish. And that's when the best part of yourself comes through. I am a very instinctive person, and I truly believe your instinct, believe in yourself, and just live your life, because life is short.
It is. I guess the power comes within you, and the light comes with you. You have to find like a lantern to have an orientation of that light in the path.
Yes.
That is going to take you to your whole life and all of the selection of experiences.
The light comes from within you. And my oldest child's name is Noor, which means light. And truly, she's been the light in my life. And the light comes within you. It's something that is there. For you to bring it out, you just need to take the extra step. And now life is difficult for all of us with a new reality, with the pandemic. But you know what? Humans are resilient. I'm reading an amazing book, which I highly recommend, called Sapiens. And it's talking about humanity. And it's actually almost a continuation to Germs, Guns, and Steel. And it shows you how pandemics are not new. With humanity has been through pandemics for many, many thousands of years. And pandemics have shaped the way we are and have gotten us to be more resilient. They have gotten us to come into innovative ways like you are doing right now. It has gotten you to come out with something which may, shine the light to a student who was anxious or not certain to be able to do this adventure. And thanks to you now, thanks to the pandemic, it has gotten this kind of, new light that sheds in their lives, and this kind of guidance, right, that they go to. I think having mentors in all of us, and you have definitely, Dr. Legreca, have proven yourself to be a mentor just by the way you're posing your questions and your grace. I think it's very important to pass that torch and to be able to say, this is what this experience has made me. This can make you as well. And, like I said, struggles in humanities we are not shy to that. We are fighters, and it's really a natural course of history. And I feel like all of those experiences are mini pandemics in our lives as well. And they only make us stronger.
Yeah, we need that little shake here and there.
Exactly. We do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me today and with our audience. I'm sure this conversation will be of tremendous inspiration for many. I have no doubt. I appreciate you sharing your energy, your light, and your power to others. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you again.